Welcome back to the YouTube series where I am trying to make a weather app that will display the weather forecast as one number out of 10. In the previous video, I set up WeatherKit and showed you how to hook that up. In this video, we are creating the algorithm that will take all of the weather data, humidity, temperature, dew point, cloud cover, etc., and convert that into that one simple number. Let's dive into the code and see just how I make that happen. Okay, so if you watched the previous video, you'll remember this screen where we had the weather data coming in. Now we're just collecting a few pieces of weather data. So the first thing we need to do is expand our data portfolio so that we can have some data to create this algorithm with. Let's start by jumping into our weather data, which is just the struct that kind of holds all the data in a nice, neat place. And we'll just expand that with what we need to have in this struct. So I think to get started, we'll just use these few points here. So we have temperature, humidity, dew point, cloud cover, wind speed, precipitation chance, and p-type. Now, p-type is just going to be used to display the weather icon if we want. We have these 6 parameters that we need to convert into one number. In our weather fetcher class, we are going to collect all of that data, normalize it, and then we'll convert it into one number. And I will show you how to do that right now. Here we are in the weather fetcher class. We are going to first extend the data that we need to collect, which is this stats box here. So we have our date, temperature, humidity, cloud cover, dew point. We have a precipitation chance, wind speed, precipitation, and our symbol name. And these ones are now 7 and 8. So now our completion is going to complain because stats 2 and 3 used to be these 2 strings, but now stats 2 and 3 are doubles, so it's like, hey, something's wrong here. This is as simple as letting the Swift autocomplete figure it out. It knows there's 8 parameters, so we can just do that. Now, there's still going to be errors throughout this as we kind of expand this out, but once we're done, it should all clear up pretty nice and easily. The next thing you'll notice is the completion is right now only has a date, a double, and 2 strings. But when we come down to our completion, we have all of these other values. So we need to add in the other doubles here, which are all just doubles. I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think that's right. We come up to our fetch current weather stats function, which is really used just to define the location, and then we pass that in, and then we get the completion. We are hard coding the location right now though, so it's not that important. You can see here we're using New York City as our location. Anyway, we need to make sure we add those doubles in here. So we have double, double, double. Let's see, is that enough? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. Okay. Now, weather fetcher is done for now. Let's go over to our view model, which should break as soon as we hit build, because we've added some stuff. So the first thing we did was we changed weather data, right? This is as simple as just letting Xcode figure it out, and then we can define these default values. Again, these ones, if you remember from the last video, they don't really matter. It's just a dummy initialization. So I'm just going to put in some dummy values here. Now we have our weather fetcher dot fetch current weather stats, which is calling that function from our weather fetcher class. And of course, it's expecting all of those values coming in now. So we can just paste in the values that we need, string. And again, here we can just let Xcode figure this out for us, I think. Weather data, we'll do this. And now we're just going to assign the values that come into each of these parameters. So we have a temp, we have a humidity, a dew point, cloud cover, wind speed, precipitation chance, and p-type. We assign that, and then we update our UI with our current weather data, which is what we're assigning here. And we assign the symbol labeled name to the other value that comes in. So we're good there. We do pass our weather data, which is coming in here. We pass this into update display values. This isn't necessarily important for the weather number, but if we want to display the values to add more context about the number in our weather app, we would need to add these. So I'm going to do that now. To do that, we're going to add some more published variables for the humidity, dew point, cloud cover, and so on. Then we're going to come down to the update display values function, and we'll just update that. To do that, we just have these additional values. These are really the ones that you would care about displaying on the screen for the user. So you have your humidity, wind speed, precipitation chance, things like that. Remember that these values, so the humidity, these are all being converted into a string so that we can use them a little nicer in SwiftUI. So the weather data values are being converted. If you don't want a rounded value, you need to use this %, and then whatever you want your decimal place, and make sure you put your labels in so that they look nice. Let's move to the next part of this, which is where it starts to get a little bit more confusing, but not too bad. The next step is going to be to convert all of this data into that one number. We need kind of a baseline though. So what I'm going to do is create a new file, and we're going to call this ideal weather stats, right? So this is going to be like how we are going to convert it. We're going to come up with what we believe is an idealized weather forecast. So your perfect temperature, perfect conditions, basically. And then we're going to compare the current weather to that value in a way. This is just a SwiftUI observable object, and we have the values that we want here. I'm going to split these out just so they're a little easier for you to see on the screen. But what I have is an ideal temperature and a weight value for how this is going to be normalized, right? Because maybe your temperature and your humidity have more of an effect on the perceived value or the perceived niceness of the weather versus something like maybe the wind speed or the cloud cover. And of course, you can build this out further with more parameters. There's many more parameters that you can get from WeatherKit or even from other weather APIs that you can build into this kind of algorithm. It's just, for demonstration purposes, I think these 6 are fine. All right, so now we have our stats that are the raw stats values, but we need to normalize them, and then we need to pass them into a way to calculate a weather number. So I'm going to first create a function called normalized weather values or something along those lines. Here's our normalize function, which just takes a raw value, which is going to be the current value, whatever it is, temperature, humidity, an ideal value, and the weight of that ideal value. And then it's going to convert it into a weighted value that is going to be returned as a double. So we're going to call that right after we build our stats, and we're going to call it for each of our different stats that we have. And I'm sure there's a better way of doing this, but this is the way that I have, which is a very novice approach. So please, if you have ideas for how I can improve my code, feel free to reach out, leave a comment below and let me know. But this is the way that I found that worked for me. Okay, so here's our normalized values variable that we're going to have here. And again, this is going to throw a bunch of errors because I'm copying code from a different app with different names. So we're going to have to change everything, but it's a very simple function here. We're basically taking that raw value, which is going to be the stats value, right? So whatever stat corresponds with 0. We're taking the ideal value, which is from not ideal weather, but ideal, you know what, we need to define this first. All right, we need to come up here, we need to create a variable ideal weather equals ideal weather stats. That should clear up a bunch of these errors. This is not temperature. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is precip chance is 5, and wind speed is 6. Okay, and then let's see, ideal temp. It's saying, oh, that's why I need to go back to weather stats. This needs to be a double. This needs to be a double. This needs to be a double. That's a number of, that's a problem. All right, and then this is not humidity weight. This is humidity weight like this. This one is dew point weight. This is ideal precipitation chance, precipitation weight, ideal wind speed, and wind speed weight. Getting there, cleaning this up is not easy, so we need a comma there and not there. There we go. All right, so we have our normalized values function. Basically, our normalized values, we have the function which takes the raw value of whatever stat we have and whatever corresponding ideal weather condition we have, and then the weight associated with that condition. We take it down to our normalized values and we do the calculation, and then we get our weighted difference. With our weighted difference, we are going to calculate the weather number. So we have our function here, calculate weather number. We're taking in all of the values that we need, and then at the end of the day, we get a reported sum, which is all of these values added together. And then we are going to create a weather number, which is just 10 minus that reported number, which is going to return the weather number. It's a very simple way of doing this. But now up in our weather fetcher, we can calculate the weather number, and then we can clamp it just to make sure that we are getting a number between 0 and 10. Get rid of that. We need to make sure that we are getting the right things here. So we have humidity. So we have our 6 values that we are normalizing. So, right, because we have normalized values set up. And then once we get those values normalized, we can call them back, right? And then we assign those all to the weather number, which is based on this function, which is the calculate weather number function. And then if the weather number is, it's either going to be 0 or 10 or the weather number, basically. That's how this works. And now we are going to pass this in our completion so that we can also have it as just a weather number. So now we will need to update the completion handlers and make sure that we are passing a double. And here we want a double. And then we are also going to update our weather data to hold a weather number, which is a double. And finally, we're going to go over to our view model, and we're going to add a weather number here, which we'll set to 10. We are going to add weather number, which is a double, to our fetch stats, and we will do the same thing here. Weather number, we're going to set it to weather number. And then we need to have an at published variable of weather number, which is going to be a string. We'll set that. And then down in our update display values, we're going to do self.weather number equals a string formatted. And we're going to do 1 decimal place, so %1f. Weather numbers don't have a unit, and we're just going to do weather data dot weather number. And now, if everything works, I think we should have a weather number. So we have our temperature here, but if we change that to weather number, we get a 0.0. Now, is that the right weather number? Maybe. We can figure it out by changing our weighting, because it could just be that our weighting is really poor, right? So if we go over, if you remember, the ideal temperature was, or the current temperature was like 30 something. So if we go to ideal stats and we change, instead of doing 70, let's do 30. Then we come back over to our current view. Not optimistic. All right, let's see. We need to do some debugging. And now if we come over to our current weather view and we change our temperature label to weather number, we should see the weather number. Now, behind the scenes, I had to fix a little bit of a bug. My ideal stats, the weighting was way off, so I changed these. And it really depends on what you want to do, right? How much of an effect do you want the temperature to have? If you want this to have a big effect, you could pump it up to like, say, 25% weight or whatever, right? And then inside of our current weather view, because it is 30 degrees in New York City right now, the effective weather number is 0. This is how the app works behind the scenes. I have a different algorithm than what I've shown here, a bit more complicated and a bit finer tuned. In the next video, if I decide to make another one of these, I'm going to go into more of the customizations, how we change color according to weather number, how we can give the user the ability to customize their weather number, and so on. If you like this series, please do subscribe to the channel. It does help me out quite a bit. And I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.